You're welcome back. This show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature. And Star Assurance, that is your solid partner. Errata Motors, they also have the best vehicles for the cheapest prices. Nuruddin Savlugu writes, he says, how come it is only the government and its appointees that are seeing and feeling the resilience and vibrancy of the economy? The ordinary Ghanaian teacher and other workers cannot afford fuel for their motorbikes and can no longer pay electricity and water bills. Okay, all right, we can end it there. And then Benjamin in Kumasi says, if you rule a nation with propaganda and lies, the realities on the ground will expose you. The Mahama administration completed the Cape Coast Stadia, Kotokraba Market, Volta University, Eastern Corridor Roads, Tomato Factory, Tamale Airport, etc. via their mouth last year. So what shows that he will be able to turn things around this time round? Agrobeswa, a free anopa. Thank you very much for your messages. Now, Mr. Blocker, 2 minutes, your reaction and your input on the tour discussion, and then we come to where all of you have the opportunity to speak to the issues you choose to speak to.
Well, thank you, Samson. Let me begin with the LEAP concerns. I think that Alhaji Bakum's issue is very fair. It's a fair concern that the full list of beneficiaries should be published. I think that it will even inure to the benefit of the government, so that the people of this country will know that these are the people receiving these support. I think that the point there to emphasize is that LEAP was left at 30,000 beneficiaries, and it's been increased to 74,000 beneficiaries from 2008. So you can see that it has expanded in leaps and bounds. And every now and then we see the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection distributing these supports across the country. I think that a full publication, probably on the ministry's website, will be helpful. But on the issue of
the minister goes to distribute.
The minister launches it in various districts, the deprived district. You see here in the news launching the program when they get to a particular district. I think we can cut down the mischief, Nana. Oh. The historical antecedent of LEAP, which has been given about the politicization, I want to emphasize that it was more to do with individuals' ideological positioning on these issues. There are some persons who are opposed to handouts, who think that, and it's an ideological position. They do not think that this is a path that we should take. And I do know that even in the current government, there are some ministers who have publicly said that they are not too enthused about this LEAP program. So let us not make it look as if it was a party. I didn't hear President Mahama.
You choose to react to LEAP instead of the issue.
I didn't hear. No, I'm coming to talk. I didn't hear President Mahama personally say that he's opposed to LEAP, but there are individuals who did that. Now, on tour, it's important to state for the records that this is not a sale, as minority MPs screamed in Parliament.
The President was emphatic, joint venture.
Yes, it's a joint venture agreement. And the brief I have from the Energy Minister is that it's the marketing arm of TOR's operations. And I am told that this has happened before with the Ghana Supply Commission and GNPC. You know, TOR is crippled every now and then because they are not able to have crude to finish. Now, the partnership with PetroSaudi is expected to handle that issue, where PetroSaudi will bring in the crude and then TOR will refine it. So TOR will make money from the tolling fees and then the storage fees that they will charge PetroSaudi. I'm told that PetroSaudi will bring in about $600 million into this partnership. Details will be put out. I'm told in the next few weeks.
Right,
but this is an arrangement which has been thoroughly discussed by TOR, and I think that it's an exciting time, especially for TOR workers who have been concerned that for a long time they have not been working on a consistent basis as they should. And what is particularly exciting about this package is that there is also a component for retrofitting TOR. You know, TOR's inefficiency is now hovering around 9 to 10%, which is too high. The industry standard is 2% maximum. And that is one of the key reasons why we don't give them our oil from the Jubilee fields to process. Because if you are going to process it outside and make more money, why give it to TOR and then you suffer this 10% loss?
Now, there are those who say it's such a shame, it's an embarrassment to this country that we can't manage such an important strategic, entity like TOR for ourselves, by ourselves.
Well, I agree with you. I was fascinated when Samuel Kujetu was calling for all of us to have confidence in the president and all of that. Yeah. Well, the confidence would come about when there's demonstration of performance. You don't call for it. It has to be earned.
And
that's the point.
I gave you evidence.
Now, the TOR thing, something. What is ironical about TOR is that at the periods when we did not have crude oil ourselves, TOR was processing crude oil and getting money. So 3-4 years down the line, in fact, the discovery came in 2007. So that's another 7 years down the line. TOR, now that we have our own crude, and we have some percentage of it that we export, TOR is not refining, and it's been idle. It's lost a lot of the valuable stuff, the skilled stuff that they had. All of them have gone to the Middle East. I remember the early days of President Mills. One of the things that he did was go to TOR. And the workers told him that our eyes are red. And he also said to them that me too, my eyes are red, and that we'll deal with your problem. Here we are, 5 years down the line. And then Kweku talked about even 2000 and 2001 when we were trying to do joint venture. And then it became a hostage to the politics and so on. But for me, today that we have oil is extra sad that we can't process. And the time that we did not have oil, we were processing. So it is the same Goggisberg economy in the 1920s. We take the raw material from the ground, we export it, and then we take the small money that we get, we go and borrow some to add to buy the finished products. So I would support any measure to revamp TOR, particularly involving the private sector, not exclusive state sector.
Right.
And then hope that we can get this anomaly correct.
Dr. Nimoy Thompson, you can say a word or two about this and then proceed to the substantive questioning that I asked you. Strictly, being straightforward and brief about it, tell us 3 things that when done and pursued rightly, will effect the changes that we need to move from the economy that we are complaining about now.
The transformation.
Right.
Right. I will skip the TOR topic since it's been covered extensively by my colleagues, and there's really nothing much to add to that. And I'll deal with the 3 things, but let me quickly touch on the issue of foreign exchange. One is to clarify, because I've heard this on radio stations so much, that the cedi has lost 100% of its value and so forth and so on. There's no such thing as a currency losing 100% of its value. It's impossible. A currency that loses 100% of its value automatically ceases to exist. Yeah. So that if the cedi were to exchange for even $1 trillion to the dollar, so long as it buys something, it's worth something. So let's get that clarified. I thought I should also share some statistics on the depreciation of the cedi since the redenomination. This is what we call December depreciation, December 1 year versus the previous year. Now, in December 2008, it depreciated by 20.1% relative to December 2007. We don't have December 2007 because there's no, the redenomination occurred in 2007. July. Yeah. And then December 2009, it depreciated by 15%. So there was some deceleration there. December 2010, it didn't depreciate at all. There was absolute stability, which is kind of rare, but it happened. At least that's what the numbers tell us. And then 2011, the depreciation rate was 7.9. And then 2012, 17.5. It started picking up. So it's like a U thing. Comes down, begins to pick up.
In 2013?
2013 was 21.7. So 1.7 higher than it was in 28. And it goes to reflect the fact that we have an underlying problem, such that even when we did the redenomination right there, right away, it almost instantaneously started depreciating, which is why we need to pursue this transformation agenda. Now, talking about transformation agenda, there's something in psychology they call the nudge factor, where you do something or you tolerate a situation knowing full well that it's not good for you.
You're speaking to 3 of the prescriptions by the president that
precisely,
when pursued properly, we won't come back to this issue.
Exactly. But the context of that is taking advantage of the crisis to deal with these structural problems and also address the issue of cynicism that my brother Kweku talked about earlier. What are the 3 top things, the preconditions for the transformation? One is the provision of adequate energy. Energy is the end-all and be-all of any modern society. The services sector, even the agricultural sector, agro-processing. I went to a pineapple farm some time ago where the pineapples were being cut and moved through an electronic, a mechanized system to get them to the factory. So once we get the energy issue resolved, I would like to think that we would probably have resolved about 50% of our economic growth problems, because it means the barber, for instance, has electricity to work with, the tailor has electricity to work with, the hairdresser has electricity to work with, the factory, no matter what the size and so forth and so on. The second one related to this is water. Water and electricity always go together if you are talking about industrialization, if you are talking about agro-processing. When you bring the pineapples and the plantains and water, they must be washed. So that is critical. These 2 go hand in hand. And then we have a cross-cutting element, which is institutional reforms, the rules of the game, so to speak. That means in order for us to succeed in attaining self-sufficiency in these areas, we need to carry out institutional reforms in the energy sector. We need to carry out institutional reforms in the water sector, and institutional reforms in other aspects of the economy.
In the energy sector, the president is talking about the NDC's program of energy for all.
Yes.
And he says that we are aggressively pursuing the completion of a number of additional power generation projects. Yes. This includes the first phase of 220,000 megawatts, is that it? Pong Thermal Power Plant, completion of the 110 megawatts T2 and the Volta River Authority's 12 megawatt solar project. And then he says, Mr. Speaker, several independent power producers, IPPs, will also commence the construction of new power plants this year, is it? Yep, this year.
Yes, that's the one hand.
So this is how to go.
Yeah, that's the production aspect of it.
Right.
And then there's the consumption, the demand aspect of it. Issues of efficiency must be discussed. If efficiency in production and
reliable transmission.
That's the technical aspect. That's for those who do that. But also from the consumption aspect, from the household aspect. We all ought to be more efficient in the way we use electricity, the way we use water. And this is critical. It calls for behavioral change. If you've seen the energy policy and energy strategic plan, they do list all these things. It's just a question of moving the next step and actually implementing them. Such that, because there's no country really that has been able to produce adequate electricity without dealing first with issues of efficiency. Our technical losses are quite high. They're in the 20s, upper 20s. So you look at countries like Singapore.
So you spoke about energy, water, and then other areas.
Institutional reform.
Institutional reforms.
Across both economy and society, but with respect to these 2 areas in terms of governance, how these sectors are governed, so that, for instance, people are punished if they don't meet targets.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. He says energy, water, and institutional reforms. The president spoke about energy, water, and he says the third leg, which is important to pursue and pursue properly so that we don't come back to this subject, will be institutional reforms.
And just to clarify, the president actually does, he didn't use the term as such, but throughout this sonar, he actually does allude to several institutional reforms. What we're going to do is to aggregate them and put them in the proper places.
Right. In respect of electricity, though, the president thinks and says that Ghana's electricity connectivity at 75% is currently the highest in the sub-Saharan Africa after South Africa. And some Ghanaians are asking, so what?
Well,
in the midst of the doom, so what? In the midst of all the problems, so what? Nana Kumia, I ask you the question. You also tell us, what are the 3 key things that the president failed to tackle, and if he tackled, he got the prescription wrong?
Well, if you look at the youth policy, the president and you and Samuel Kujato were going on about it, youth employment and all of that. It is not exactly like we got it wrong, but the time that we have wasted, for me, that's the bigger issue. If you take the youth employment one, you might know NYP, even when it was outlawed in 2006, the NDC castigated it, said it was just a palliative. It was job for the NPP food soldiers. It wasn't the serious solution to unemployment. Samuel Kujato was at the forefront, and President Mahama too at the forefront. Look at his head; he's laughing at me. They were running all over, you see. And then you came in and you ran it down completely. It's become one of the biggest corruption scandals in Africa. Wow! You see, I have in my hand a national employment policy, finalized in 2008 with cabinet approval. I have in my hand an action plan for the implementation of the youth policy. This was what made Sekou Nkrumah got into trouble. You know, the NDC, you know, after the public servants and the civil servants and the NGOs and the civil societies have finished with the work, we subjected this to political ownership. So all the political parties had about a week or 2 weeks to look at it. The NDC was fully represented in those meetings. And you have this action plan fashioned out. 2008. How many years down the line? 6 years down the line. The president is now telling us that we are now going to launch another action plan. Total waste of time and resources. So this is one key thing. Then it also struck me when we're talking about the paradigm shift and all of that. It occurred to me that whilst we're talking about bringing in new industries and new joint venture arrangements and all of that, the existing industries are dying. The existing ones are dying. Go to the industrial areas. They are turning into supermarkets. Go to the Spintex Road industrial area. They turn into shops and supermarkets. Go to the North industrial area. Go to the South industrial area. They become showrooms for cars, big churches, and supermarkets. Take the pharmaceutical industry in Ghana. The volumes are going down, and pharmaceutical production is a big low-hanging fruit for us. Take the textile industry. When they had this task force in place, the production volumes of the local textile industries were about 50%. When they removed the task force and the smuggling are coming in without any hindrance, the production volumes of the textile industry are going below 30%. You know, so even the ones that are existing, there's no support for them. And I thought that you would start with the ones that are already up and running and are suffering terribly before you can move on to the new ones. But you see, you talked about this youth employment thing because it's very crucial. Youth employment is it's a security risk, actually. In 2008, the National Youth Employment Program was reviewed, and the going forward, the steps that have to be taken. We talked about legalizing it, and a draft bill was actually done. I must commend Harun Idrisu, the current Minister for Trade. He's very active in the drafting of the draft bill to legalize the youth employment program. Since then, nothing has happened. It talked about setting up this youth enterprise fund. How it's going to be set up, how to be funding for young people who have good business ideas. Way back 2008, all of this were talked about and passed on. Nothing has been done. 5 years down the line, we are still talking about it. Samuel Kujato made some interesting observations. Nimwe said the cedi cannot depreciate by 100% technically. But I've heard NDC people talked about the cedi depreciating by 23,000% since. So, you know, it's an amazing observation.
But cumulatively, that's the word. We proceeded cumulatively.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
Cumulative depreciation.
When we say 100%, or you're talking cumulatively, not in a year. Not in a year, cumulatively.
Yeah.
Now, Sami talked about the president's confidence and all that, said he was the head of the economic management team when we had our highest GDP. We all know the basis of that highest GDP, just the factoring in of the oil receipts, just digging the oil and exporting it. That's what brought the deficit. It wasn't because of any economic transformation idea that came. And you should also not forget that it was as head of economic management team that we had all of these judgment debts paid, which up to today defy understanding by Ghanaians how those payments could have been done. So let's not try and paint those pictures without looking at it objectively.
Thank you very much, Nana Kumia. He's particularly worried that, and I took note of that we had a youth policy that was ready in 2010. 2008, really. But the president spoke about a youth policy that was ready, that was launched in 2010, and an action and implementation plan is now being finalized. And I was asking myself, so the people at the youth agency, authority, what exactly are they doing? What have they been doing, really? Do they have any job? But Sami, I ask if you could tell us some 2 areas that Ghanaians should be celebrating this government for achieving within the period under review.
I'll come to that in a jiffy. If I could just quickly respond to some of the issues that Nana Komia has raised. The Youth Policy Action Plan, it strikes me as strange that Nana Komia is not concerned that it took his government 8 years. They were in power from 2001. 8 years to come up with some draft action plan in August 2008. He's not worried about that. He's worried about us who have been in power. And President Mahama has been in power for less than 2 years. He's worried about him who has delayed the implementation of the action plan. But his government, that it took them 8 years before they came out with a draft. He doesn't appear worried about that. I find that very strange.
It's a final document, not a draft.
Yeah, final document for 8 years. Yeah, 8 years you were in power,
6 years in power.
And you are not concerned about that,
So because we took 8 years, you should take 8 years.
No, I mean, I don't think that, the listening public is more discerning than that, Nana Kumia. Now, existing industries dying. I just wanted to make a small point that, I think that it's certainly a byproduct of people who have Nana Kumia's ideological orientation. Your industries will become churches, it will become shops and things if you think that the government has no business doing business. The same mentality that took us into selling, Nkrumah's companies. That's a clear byproduct of that. The pharmaceutical industries, this government has supported them with 50 million Ghana cedis. The president announced it in the State of the Nation address. And yes. So let us be fair.
But you impose new taxes on them.
Yeah, I mean.
So what's the point?
What's wrong with taxes?
Why impose taxes?
What's wrong with taxes? I mean, when this heckling is not acceptable.
If you keep inviting him directly into it, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Hold on. Well, you sold all the companies.
Now,
this is sold all the companies.
I thought you said me. I was going to tell you that I must have been in school then. The 2 key areas that we are getting right. It's going to be a difficult pick. In my sector, there's a lot going on. My boss, very dynamic, phenomenal woman. I admire her so much. Professor Nana Jenopoko-Ajiman. For the first time in the history of this country, enrollment at the colleges of education have shot up by 63.8% because of the reforms that have taken place there. Enrollment has moved from 9,000 to about 15,408. We have also just concluded a staff rationalization program which the president talked about and called for support. Some of the unions are not happy about the need for transfers. Right. We've had a situation where virtually all our regions have excess teachers, in that teachers want to stay in the big towns and don't want to teach in the deprived districts. The Volta region has in excess of 3,000 excess teachers. Ashanti region, excess of 8,000 teachers. I thought that these were significant points. The distribution of 12.5 million textbooks for free to all students or pupils at the basic level in the core subjects of English, science, and maths. And the distribution of computers. I just returned from Ho 2 days ago, where we gave 6,810 computers to teachers from the Volta, Eastern, and Greater Accra regions. 50,000 of them have just been trained in ICT, and they are receiving laptops for free. So there's a lot happening in the education sector. I was also quite excited about the water sector, that though we have current challenges, the president indicated that there are ongoing water projects within the capital. The president said that there are 4 key projects currently ongoing that will deliver a total of 65.3 million gallons of water per day to the existing production capacity. Between this year and 2015, the total water supply to the Greater Accra metropolitan area will increase to 158.3 million gallons of water per day, enough to tackle the water demands in the area by the end of 2015. This will end the water starvation in the northern part of the city. Adenta, Hacho, Agbogba, Medina, and all others will receive water. The president also touched on the Pong Water Supply Expansion Project, the Pong Intake Rehabilitation Project, the Accra Tema Metropolitan Area Water Supply Project, and the Teshi Nungwa Desalination Water Project, which in all will help us achieve our target of 85%. We are currently doing about 70%.
When you spoke about education, the president spoke about you being actively engaged in the process of building new school blocks to replace schools in substandard structures. And he spoke about, he said in 1,900 communities, mostly rural, this has improved the environment in which the children learn and enabled classes to be held all year round. It sounds blankets. I mean, at what stages are these developments? I'm interested in knowing, you talk about the increase in the number of trainees in the colleges of education from the previous 9,000 to 15,000. Among other things, you're talking about, looking at increasing access, especially in the secondary education and tertiary education. And you speak about some very good numbers that are happening there. But of course, you're also aware that for example, to talk about this, let me read this to you. He says that, Mr. Speaker, at the secondary level, access continues to be a major problem. Existing secondary schools have a capacity to absorb only 60% of the students who qualify from junior high school. Because of the high demand for secondary education, existing schools have been compelled to admit much higher than they were designed to accommodate. This has led to circumstances in which there are some schools with as many as 3,000 students. This is significantly higher than the prescribed average of 15,000. I think
of 1,500.
Yes, this speaks about the terrible situation of the teacher-student ratio, and that's not good to boast about, is it?
Yeah, that's why the president was not boasting in this context. He was putting out the challenge, and this is why he pledged to construct 200 additional community-day senior high schools. Indeed, for the first time, the president gave a specific date that on 3rd March, which is just Monday, a day after tomorrow, at 10 a.m., and he's chosen the Eastern region, Upper West Akim District, to break ground for the first batch of these senior high schools. The challenge the president put out is very accurate, that yes, the ideal situation for disciplinary issues, for proper school management, is that the student per senior high school should not exceed 1,500. Right. But you now have a situation where schools are in excess of 3,000, 3,500. And it's important that within the context of the opening up of access, you come to appreciate that decongestion is also one of the policy considerations, so that once you now have more senior high schools, because if the president did not put out this bold, accelerated program, per our statistics from 2000 in 2008, there were 493 public senior high schools. By 2013, this has gone up by only 42. So there are now 535 public senior high schools. Of course, there are some 300 private senior high schools. But, 42 in 5 years is very paltry as compared to what happens at the basic level.
About the tertiary institutions and the private ones, he also seems to boast about, an increase in that number.
Yes.
But you know that these tertiary institutions are now crying about what you are taking away from them or bringing upon them tax. And there doesn't seem to be, he's concerned also about the humanities concentration. And there doesn't seem to be incentives enough to get them to get into the science and technology areas.
Yes, that's why as a ministry we have begun strong collaboration with industry, with the NDPC. We've held initial talks. We are going to hold a national conference in the first week of April to really look at what we can do to strengthen, science and engineering education, and most importantly also look at a market survey which will feed into the curriculum of these institutions. And also the National Accreditation Board. How do you accredit institutions to run what kind of programs? Because you need to also have in mind the employment needs of your country. So these discussions are going on. And I must say that the issue has been that it is cheaper to train graduates in the humanities. Of course, the 75 public universities, private universities, most of them, prefer to do those programs.
Right.
But as we assess the market, and we are able to now put out what the policy is, you will see that the National Accreditation Board and the NCT will streamline their licensing processes so that we
Thank you
create
very
a
much.
stronger nexus.
I'm now going to play the President. We're going to hear the President again on education, and I'll start with Abdul Malik Kwekubako Jr. On the issue of the free senior high school. But before that, the gentleman who sent in the text earlier and made some remarks which I didn't like about Dr. Nimoy Thompson says, something, please, I am very, very sorry for my choice of words to Dr. Nimoy Thompson. If he is offended, which he certainly should be, it is not intentional and it was a mistake. My apologies. Please forgive me, Dr. Nimoy Thompson. Thank you very much. Abdul Malik, I was saying we want to move on to free SHS, and you want to make a quick one before we go there?
Well, just a quick one, yes. For Sammy's information, and sometimes it surprises me when the NDC raises the ideological question and then pushes the NPP into a certain straitjacket.
But
he went, he called for it. Nana Komia kept saying to him, government has no business doing business. And
yes, which is exactly what the NDC
I hold a different view. I hold a different view personally. This is my personal position.
You've misquoted me.
My personal position.
You've misquoted me. I don't know if you are not
something.
Everybody heard you. Everybody heard you.
1 second. What I said was that I don't support government establishing industries, but that government should empower the private sector.
And I disagree with you on that. I disagree with you. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And that is why you're having most of your factories becoming churches and all of that, which you are now complaining about.
Because they're in the private sector.
Why are we setting them up if we will end up privatizing them or abandoning them?
Yes.
It's been a management problem. I also refer to the Kumasi, the juice factory. All of them, we don't know what's going on really. And now we are asking them.
Let's look at the management model. Yeah. Why is it that these factories, some of them, when they are privatized, do so well? The same factories, under the same conditions, in the same country.
Yes. But we
that
should
is
also
a critical
look at the
question.
historical context in which they were established.
Right.
At the time of independence, we virtually had no private sector.
Okay. Yeah.
Those that existed were mostly involved in trading.
But that doesn't justify where we are now with those industries.
They were set up. Again, it's a governance institutional issue.
Okay, thank you. Abdul Malik.
Well, just to make a point, that the NDC, and here it's as a policy, also believed that government had no business doing business. Sammy may say his is a personal view, and I would quote from the Hansard, 14th March 1997. This is Mr. Dan Abutabi, Nana Komia was in. I've never been able to pronounce that name, even though he's a very good friend of mine. May he accept my apologies. Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, my honorable colleague was saying that those factories have been closed down and there is nothing in the budget statement about what we are doing with them. And in the same breath, he said that perhaps they are on divestiture. If they are on divestiture, the purpose of divestiture process is to introduce new capital and not from government. It is not the business of government to be in business.
Was that his personal position?
This is a minister for trade and industry on the floor of parliament.
Thank you very much, Abdul.
And indeed, no, please. And indeed, the evidence on the ground pointed to that. The government itself engaged in a process of withdrawing from business. Just to make it.
But we should also be clear here.
Right. No, I'm not judging. I'm not judging whether it was right or wrong.
Let's watch, and for you on radio, listen to the president on the controversial free senior high school.
On the roadmap for a progressive introduction of free secondary education in Ghana. And mark my words, I said progressive introduction of free secondary education in Ghana as required under the 1992 Constitution. This roadmap will be presented to Cabinet for approval and subsequent implementation. Under the guidance of this roadmap, we can anticipate that fees for day students will be abolished at an estimated cost of 71 million Ghana cedis in 2015-2016 academic year.
Thank you very much. That is His Excellency the President talking free senior high school. Now, in the lead up to the elections and in the election campaign, this was the biggest issue. And Dr. Nimo Thompson has to leave us at this point because it's very critical that he has to. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Nimo Thompson, for coming.
Thank you for having me here.
Right. Now, I just wanted to take us back a bit. And I'm going to read from the My Joy Online publication of September 10, 2012. And this is the Minister of Education at the time. And this is the story. It says, the Minister of Education says the opposition New Patriotic Party is building castles in the air. Underline castles in the air. Leokran insists the policy is building castles in the air with its promise of a free senior high school education. Leokran insists the policy would have been implemented a long time ago by Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, if the policy was achievable. Underline, if the policy was achievable. And then it gives you a background that Nana Akufo-Addo has been trumpeting a free senior high education through his tours throughout the country and so on and so forth. And then you say, but the story says that, but the ruling party, in equal measure, has been vociferous in describing the policy as an empty talk from a desperate politician. On Monday, Education Minister Leokran capped the criticisms of the policy, declaring that free senior high school is a vision impossible, at least for now. He even went ahead to say it could be possible only in the next 20 years. And that's, quote, this is what he had to say. Children won't sit on trees. During the implementation of the free SHS, they need classrooms. First things must be done first. And that was the priority of the NDC. Kweku.
Well. It was quite interesting that this issue of free SHS came into the context of the State of Nation address. It was quite interesting.
Right.
I've been trying to find out the rationale and the motive and whatever impact it was supposed to achieve. But I think that whatever it is, I think even if it was meant to refocus public debate, shift attention to a specific issue, an important one as such, which is okay, it will have, for me, transient impact. It could backfire eventually, and create political and psychological problems for the ruling party, in my candid opinion, because of the context, how these things were handled. So initially, it may take people's attention off other economic challenges and bring us to focus on this matter. That's initially. But subsequently, since the thing is going to be a running debate, issues will be raised in terms of integrity and credibility of what one says now as compared to what one said previously. Now I've been asking, let's deal with the substance now. What the NDC is suggesting that they are, what they've put out there is not exactly the same as Akufo-Addo put out there. In some areas, they are right in terms of exactitude. There are certain differences, and there will always be such variations. But bottom line, we are still talking here of free something. And I've been asking myself, in the course of election 2012, the campaign, what was the rationale for bringing in the Otabil tape, which was talking of free, that is, that there was nothing like free, and that even something being free was not good enough. I'm sure you remember.
Sure.
What was the rationale in bringing that thing onto the front burner?
The NDC said it didn't sponsor that tape.
That's Education Watch. Is the NDC now Education Watch?
You see, I knew this was coming, and I prepared for it. In any case, we showed evidence to the effect that where the NDC adverts were being paid from, that was the same place that thing was being paid from. And indeed, NDC communicators, you see, that's the point. If you allow me, I will establish my case. NDC communicators, actually on various platforms, including this one, cited that particular advert in support of their case. Okay? So even if you didn't originate it, you applied it in the campaign messages and the communication. So in actual fact, part ownership, you thought it had value. You thought it was valid point to show how the poverty of the Akufo-Addo focus on education. You used it. And not just that. Another one was J.H. Mensah. If you recall, they went for J.H. Mensah's voice in Parliament. Let me just quote that portion. J.H. Mensah was supposed to have said this. He says, "We are obsessed with the idea of free things. Mr. Speaker, there is no free thing. As I keep saying in this house, if it is free, it is only because we have collected taxes from you and we are buying it for you when you need it. But it is not free to you because we collected the taxes from you. So the idea that we are going for that, so the idea that all we are going for is free compulsory universal basic education. It is education that is important and not the free, because it can never be free anywhere to the whole nation, because the whole nation has to pay. It is only free at the point of delivery, and that is not such an important part of the concept FQ. The important part of the concept of FQ is that all our children shall be properly educated. That means the content of education, the books, and the teacher quality. What was the rationale in bringing this to the front burner? And indeed, I insist, NDC communicators, speaking officially for the party, adopted these messages and articulated them as part of their defense against what they saw as Akufo-Addo's misguided vision. So please, let nobody come here today and tell me that we did not originate it. You did not originate it, but you bought into it and you applied it. And so, you see, it was a split messages that the NDC as a corporate entity put out there for political capital, for propaganda effect, to win the election on basis of that. Fine, you've won it. So let's now deal with the matter today. Look, what did Akufo-Addo say? As far as I'm concerned, I have been trying to go back to check. See, let's go. First of all, this is what he said at Accra Polytechnic, 2012, speech on education. By free HSS, we mean that in addition to tuition, which is already free, there will be no admission fees, free textbooks, no library fees, no science center fees, no computer lab fees, no examination fees, no utility fees, free boarding and free meals, and day students will get a free meal, a meal for free. Now the substantive issues, this was at the IEA, and let me read it. Fellow citizens, I know numbers can be boring, but these are important numbers the additional cost of providing free senior high school will be around 1% of Ghana's GDP. The cost of providing free secondary school education, which includes tuition, boarding, feeding, and all other charges for 2013-2014 academic year, is estimated at 0.1% of our GDP. This translates into some 78 million Ghana cedis. We have made provision for a major increase in enrollment as a result of admitting all JHS students into SHS in 2014-2015. We expect the cost to rise to 288 million Ghana cedis, that is 0.3% of GDP. In that academic year, an increase to 774 million Ghana cedis in 2015-2016, which is 0.7% of GDP. Additional expenditure on more teachers, infrastructure for schools, including expanding and rehabilitating existing infrastructure, and establishing cluster schools in areas where there are no senior high schools, will bring the total cost to 754 million, that is 0.9% of GDP in 2013, and rise to 1.45 billion cedis, 1.3% of GDP in 2016. I'll soon finish. Providing free secondary education will increase the total educational expenditure from the 4.1% of GDP in 2012 to 5.8% by 2016, a figure which is still below the UNESCO minimum of 6%. I'm prepared to go beyond that in order to improve quality at all levels, primary, JHS, SHS, and tertiary. Indeed, implied in this is a progressive and graduated implementation. Implied in this, the progressive that we talk about as captured by the Constitution, it is in the implementation. Implied in this Akufo-Addo thing is also a progressive implementation in terms of operationalization, because it tells you about the first segment, 2013, what will happen, and then what will happen subsequently in 2014, 2015. That is that progressive implementation of a policy. So I don't get the point that is being made today. And what surprises me is that I suddenly get the impression that we are being told that access and quality, which officially was the NDC stand, appear to have been resolved adequately or sufficiently to enable the operationalization of this concept, even if in a partial way. If within 1.5 years, and in spite of the economic and physical challenges that we are confronted with in this country today, enough has been done relative to access and quality in order to trigger this in 2015, 2014, then I've been asking myself, what's the big deal in the opposition, that spirited opposition that was launched against somebody who said, look, I could do it. I will start beginning 2013 September and proceed in this graduated progressive manner. What was the big deal? Right. Except for political capital.
Okay, just hold it there. I'll go for a quick break. I'll return and we'll hear from Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. If someone asks you that he voted for the NDC because your position on this education debate was quality access, and now you have betrayed their vote, what would you say when you are now going for free SHS, which that person voted against? We'll be right back.